My name is Christopher Allen Maloney, and this is Why This Movie, a podcast where we talk about the movies we love and why we love them. Today I'm talking with Matthew Rand. He's a radio journalist from our shared home state of Ohio. He also happens to be one of my oldest and closest friends. Matt, nice to see you.
Great to see you, my friend.
So how do we know each other?
Oh gosh, we go back a ways. We were, my first memory of you was, it's hard to pin down. I know we were in band together. That was the first definitive get to know Chris was in band. You and our good friend Trent would sit behind me in band class, and you guys were made up the low brass section. And from what I recall, mostly we're goofing off back there while the rest of us were trying to make music.
I think every now and then we played some inspired sequences from what I recall.
I feel like you took it seriously, whereas our friend Trent did perhaps not take it as seriously and would veer you into distracted territory.
Yeah, all of that's true enough. Yeah. So what movie are we talking about today?
We're talking about a little sleeper hit, one that you may have seen, 1993's Jurassic Park.
It's 1993. Steven Spielberg, the most celebrated film director of the last 50 years, is about to release a highly anticipated film version of the best-selling Jurassic Park novel.
There it is. Welcome to Jurassic Park.
We've made living biological attractions so astounding that they'll capture the imagination of the entire planet.
The most phenomenal discovery of our time.
How'd you do this?
Becomes the greatest adventure of all time.
Can I touch it?
Sure.
Universal Pictures presents
You feel that?
Hold on to your butts.
a Steven Spielberg film.
Fences are failing all over the park.
Yeah, that's nice. Gotta go.
An adventure.
Look out! Down!
I can't get Jurassic Park back online.
65 million years in the making. Jurassic Park.
By now you know the story. Through incredible breakthroughs in the fields of paleontology and genetic engineering, a team of scientists and engineers has come up with a way to create dinosaurs. This project is turned into a theme park owned by visionary John Hammond, who has invited a select few respected names to visit the park before its grand opening, in hopes of getting endorsements to calm the minds of anxious investors.
We're going to open next year, that is if the lawyers don't kill me first. I don't care for lawyers. Do you?
I
Don't really know any.
Well, I do, I'm afraid. There's a particular pebble in my shoe, represents my investors. Says that they insist on outside opinions.
What kind of opinions?
Well, your kind, not to put too fine a point on it. I mean, let's face it, in your particular field, you're the top minds. And if I could just persuade you to sign off on the park, get your endorsement, maybe even pen a wee testimonial, I could get back on schedule.
Why would they care what we think?
What kind of park is this?
It's right up your alley.
At first, it's a marvel that overwhelms the small group. They see remarkably vivid dinosaurs, thanks to some groundbreaking CGI from Industrial Light and Magic, though they remain skeptical about some of the ethical questions raised by bringing back to life animals that went extinct millions of years earlier. The most vocal of these skeptics is Ian Malcolm.
I'll tell you the problem with the scientific power that you're using here. It didn't require any discipline to attain it. You read what others had done, and you took the next step. You didn't earn the knowledge for yourselves, so you don't take any responsibility for it. You stood on the shoulders of geniuses to accomplish something as fast as you could, and before you even knew what you had, you patented it and packaged it and slapped it on a plastic lunchbox, and now you're selling it. You want to sell it. Well,
I don't think you're giving us our due credit. Our scientists have done things which nobody's ever done before.
Yeah, but your scientists were so preoccupied with whether or not they could, they didn't stop to think if they should.
When the park goes offline and loses power due to the sabotage of a disgruntled employee, the dinosaurs get loose and the visitors become their prey. Jurassic Park opened to incredible box office and became, upon its release, the most successful movie of all time, breaking box office records previously set by E.T., Star Wars, and Jaws.
Jurassic Park has arrived. From the looks of it, you'll be lucky to get in to see it this weekend. People are lining up all across America to catch the hot new summer movie from Steven Spielberg. Tony, the question everyone will be asking this coming week, have you seen it yet?
Well, I haven't seen it yet, but you see that line? Those are people waiting in line to go inside in just a minute for the 10 o'clock show. And in 2 minutes and 30 seconds, I'm going to throw down this microphone and get in that line because I have my ticket and I paid cash American dollars for it, I want you to know. And in fact, dollars is the whole theme of this weekend. You know, the movie Citizen Kane is regarded as one of the greatest movies ever made, but I don't know one person who can say how much money Citizen Kane ever made. On the other hand, a lot of people this weekend are talking about how much money Jurassic Park may make. And that, in a nutshell, is the difference between a great movie and a hit movie.
It would hold that record until Titanic came out on top 4 years later. It remains one of the most popular movies of all time and has spawned sequels, merchandise, video games, and attractions. Obviously, I know that you have an affinity for this movie, but pretty much everybody, we've quoted it back and forth to each other, but it's not like it's a cult classic.
Oh, you don't think so?
Well, no, I don't. And I guess I didn't realize. I would say you have a pretty refined palette when it comes to the arts, when it comes to films. And so I was surprised that this mainstream blockbuster hit was the one that came to mind for you.
Well, you're right. First of all, that we've quoted it a lot. I pull a lot of quotes from that movie. It's fun to say, hold on to your butts, or you didn't say the magic word. There are just so many one-liners from that movie that are so much fun. I was thinking about it getting ready for this, like what did draw me to that movie. And I think it just came around at a very pivotal point in my youth, right? And yours as well. Before I got in, before I cared one lick about movies, I was a big dinosaur kid, and this was an early obsession of mine. I can remember, and having this movie with the dinosaurs come to life, and realistically on the big screen, I'd seen The Land Before Time when I was a small child. Mm-hmm. Talk about a tearjerker there, but the first time seeing, I was in awe just as much as Dr. Grant and Dr. Sattler were when they were riding in the Jeep at the opening of that film. It just hit at a very formative time for me, and I think a lot of people of a certain generation sort of captured our imagination. And I can go on, but that's kind of what did it for me. I was hooked ever since.
Well, we were the target audience because so 93, it came out in the summer of 93. So I would have turned 8 at the end of that year. So I was 7 when it came out.
Yeah, I would have been 8,
and I guess you would have just turned 8.
Yeah.
Right.
I remember begging. I remember hearing about the film from a newspaper article talking about this upcoming movie. That was how long ago? Just such a different world we lived in.
Were you reading the paper at age 8?
My dad pointed it out and said, "Here, son, you'd be interested in this." But you would have thought then we would have gone and been first in line to see it. But for whatever reason, it was months and months. Like I missed the first showing of it. Oh. And I remember the first time I finally got to see it in theaters was my grandmother, who took us to like the Dollar Theater, the second run cheap theater, and finally got to see it in all its glory. But it was just, I was on pins and needles felt like an eternity just to see this movie.
Did you go to the Super Saver Cinema in next to Biggs?
That's a distinct possibility. I can't remember. No, you know where I think we went was it Forest Fair Mall that had the playground like with like the Ferris wheel inside?
It'll change the way America shops. It's everything the consumer could possibly want, all at one time, all in one spectacular place. One-stop shopping, the total shopping experience.
That movie was playing like a lot longer than most movies would have their theatrical run anyways. So you might have, I mean, if you had to wait until the time when it was considered like a second run movie, that must have been a very long time.
Oh yeah. And when you're 8, it's an eternity.
So I saw it at the Midway Theater in Bethel, Ohio. So
classic one screen.
Yeah.
No frills.
Right.
Yeah.
One screen. You had no choice what you're going to see. And then they always put the marquee outside on the sidewalk. And that poster, in my opinion, is one of the great movie posters of all time because it just shows the logo and then that tagline, an adventure 65 million years in the making. And then that's pretty much it. Like, you know, it's about dinosaurs. You see Spielberg's name on it. And then other than that, yeah, that's pretty much it. But like we were lined up on the sidewalk, if I remember right, like the sidewalk leading out around the side of the building. Because
were you there the first night?
I doubt I was there the first night. But I know that even before people started talking about it, even like the first weekend, it was already breaking records.
Yeah. I wonder if it was similar to, like, we always hear about the, you know, people seeing Star Wars, the original, you know, dozens of times and standing in line and talking about it and building this buzz. And I wonder if that happened that summer of '93 as well with that movie.
It must have. I mean, it was pretty. That was my favorite movie when it came out. Like as a kid, it was my favorite movie. I think until the sequel came out, The Lost World. So it had a good run. But what did you make of the visual effects? I mean, did you have some sense of how those things were happening in front of you?
I think so. Okay. I remember early on, there was some show. If I didn't know how they did it all when I saw the movie soon thereafter, I remember there was some movie magic show on TBS or some such that was all about how they pull off these things. And I was rightfully so very fascinated about the process of, you know, the wireframes and everything, and how this was this huge leap forward technologically. Mm-hmm. And man, does it hold up?
I agree. As a kid, I thought that the Gallimimus herd, I thought those were ostriches that they had like affixed with some kind of prosthetics.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Because it looked so real to me, and they moved so much like birds. Like it didn't occur to me that those could have been punched up digitally because I didn't know what that was.
Yeah. I mean, it seemed to change everything overnight as far as that goes. I can see the movie for what it is. I mean, obviously these are very aged effects that, you know, are a product of their time. We've come a long way since then, for better or for worse. It's also, I wanted to mention too, like, I think it's amazing how well the movie works despite how many you know, continuity errors and things there are in it. You can go on, you know, YouTube and find, you know, compilations of seems like dozens of just like errors, like the early scene with Nedry in the briefcase. It moves all over the place while they're having the conversation with Dodson about the about the getting the embryos off the island, and it's just like, how did this make it past? But it just works because you're just caught up in the story, and I think that just speaks to the power of story and the power of the imagination that first movie specifically tapped into.
Do you remember like any more about the circumstances of seeing it for the first time?
I was terrified, let me tell you. I mean, the velociraptors specifically. I mean, I remember that scene in, it's right toward the end, the one where they're running from them and they're climbing up through the ventilation ducts, and for whatever reason there's the projection of the AGTC onto the dinosaur, and this captures that moment. And I just think, oh man, this thing is, it's ready to tear these people to pieces. And I was really gripped in it. So yeah, I was perhaps, and you too, I don't know if we were too young to see it because it was very terrifying at moments. And I had to I remember my grandmother leaning over, now Matthew, it's only a movie, these people are okay. But yeah, it was scary. It was really gripping at the time.
Did you go to the movies a lot at that age?
Not a lot, no. I remember, actually, it's one of the last memories I have with my mother, who died when I was very young, but she had taken us to the movies. Actually, it was the Bethel Midway.
Mm-hmm.
I remember it well. We had gone to see Hook, another Steven Spielberg classic.
Yeah.
And we had gone there for that one. But yeah, we had a lot of VHS tapes, obviously. That was, that era, and the Disney Vault and everything. And so we would buy these things up, or, McDonald's used to have VHS, popular movies on VHS, and we'd get these things. But yeah, I didn't end up at the theater as much until I was really old enough to drive myself and get down the road and see movies first run with you guys.
So going to Jurassic Park with your grandmother, could that have been the first time you had gone to the movies since you went with your family, your mom and your family?
Possibly, yeah.
Huh. Did you have it on VHS?
You better believe it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you remember? I was trying to explain to my kids how this kind of thing used to work, but we had to wait 2 years for that to come out on video.
Yeah.
And I remember our family had to pre-order it through through the video store, and then just our names were on because it was going to be in such demand that our names were on the list of we ordered it because we knew they were going to run out.
Yeah, well, that makes sense. Yeah, it was definitely a phenomenon.
What are some of your favorite parts?
Probably my favorite non-dinosaur scene is the one with Hammond talking about the flea circus.
Yeah.
The
Petticoat
conversation,
Lane.
Petticoat Lane, yes. The conversation between him and Sadler about his aspirations for the park and what he hoped to achieve. And it's, it sort of lays out the hubris and the folly of what Hammond tried to do.
The first attraction I ever built when I came down from Scotland, the flea circus, Petticoat Lane. Really quite wonderful. We had a wee trapeze and carousel and a seesaw. They all move, motorized, of course, but people would say they could see the fleas. Oh, I can see the fleas, Mummy, can't you see the fleas? Clown fleas and high wire fleas and fleas on parade. But with this place, I wanted to show them something that wasn't an illusion. Something that was real. Something that they could see and touch.
a name not devoid of merit.
But you can't think through this one, John. You have to feel it.
Ellie's humanity drives home his mistake, which is the point of the film. And it's a really powerful scene. I actually have there's a shot in that scene of a stuffed brontosaurus, brachiosaurus, whichever it is, that is a cutaway shot in that scene. And I have that stuffed animal that I had bought when I was a kid with my own, saved up nickels at the I don't know where it came from, but I remember saving up for this thing. I'd seen it in the store and wanted it, and I still have it. But that's one of my favorite scenes.
Yeah, that's really cool. There are so many parts. Well, there isn't like, especially compared to the sequels, there's not a ton of dinosaur screen time, really.
They're very selective. They use them with, they're when they're on the screen, they're there to make a point, and I mean, the first encounter with the T-Rex, right? I think is what we all look at with the road flares and everything, and everything the choices they made in composing those shots, as I understand it, really served that scene and served the limits of the technology they had. That T-Rex looked as good as it could have because it was shot in the dark. It was shot. It was raining, so you could have like the glisten of the rain off of its scales, etc. All that played to it, its strengths. And then of course they're using these massive puppets and things, the physical, something real in camera for shots that required it too. Like all those calls they made really served the scene incredibly well. But yeah, that's the thing that sticks out with me. Blockbusters today are CGI spectacles, and sometimes that works. Sometimes you can have an imaginative world that is unlike anything we've seen before, but sometimes it's just a hot mess of pixels, and it's hard to even make sense of what you're looking at. But they were very careful and intentional, I think, with the choices they made composing those scenes in Jurassic Park.
Yeah, I think there's some kind of almost like an instinctive thing that happens even as when you're a kid and you're watching something and you see some kind of effects shot. There's something that tells you that whether or not what you're looking at is tangible, something that you could touch. So I think there, like you said, there were like a really good blend of animatronics with CGI. Mm-hmm. And I think that's part of probably what we responded to as kids, is that if we wanted to, we could actually be on that set and reach out and touch the dinosaurs that were being filmed.
Yeah, the scene with the Triceratops and Sam Neill leaning on it. Mm-hmm. I mean, they built that, and I imagine he didn't have to act very much to have that childlike joy of interacting with this giant animal, even if it's not real, but it is tactile. You can touch it, and that comes through.
What was it about dinosaurs that you loved as a kid?
I was just curious about these things, and I liked. I've just always been kind of a science geek, and what kid doesn't like real life dragons that roamed the earth millions of years ago, and even our worst imaginings of what they look like. I'm thinking of like the Victorian era, the concrete ones they have out in England that look nothing like the dinosaurs that we understand today. I mean, those are cool, right? And I just always gravitated toward them, and and it was just awesome as an 8-year-old to see them come to life.
Yeah, I wonder about if dinosaurs existed like in these enormous zoos or wildlife preserves, what the fascination would be like, it wouldn't be the same.
No,
because
we take
they're
them for granted like we do everything else.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think elephants are really cool, but it's not like a longing that I have because I can see them when I go to the zoo.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of the Jurassic World movies. There are things, but I one of the choices they made about pointing out that, people would eventually take these animals for granted and demand something more impressive. I think that makes a lot of sense, and I think you're right. I think we would lose that sense of wonder, and unfortunately, that's what happens to us as an audience too.
Yeah, you're right. I remember going to the was it the Shelton Library in our town?
Yes, right.
Mary P. Shelton.
Mary P. Shelton. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Yeah.
They had a great collection of dinosaur books in the children's section that I used to check out all the time.
Did you ever read Dinotopia?
Of course I did.
Okay, great. Yeah, it's a fantastic imagining of a society with dinosaurs and people living harmoniously together. It's beautiful, the artwork and everything.
It is, yeah.
Which may or may not have been ripped off to make Naboo in Star Wars Episode 1, but that's another show.
Yeah, that's quite an accusation.
I've heard it made, but it's not original to me. I've heard others point out the similarities in the architecture between the buildings in Dinotopia, if you go back and look, and the architecture of the capital city of Naboo there, where they, at the end of the movie, fairly similar.
Quite an indictment. Did you read the book Jurassic Park?
I have. I've read Jurassic Park and its sequel, The Lost World.
Did you know that there was like a bidding war between movie studios at the time? I think before the book was published, when it was just the material was there, but it hadn't even been like out on shelves yet. It was an intellectual property, like the story, like the studio heads knew what the story was. But there was a bidding war.
And they knew it was going to be a hit, and they wanted it.
Exactly. Did you know about this?
No, I didn't.
Yeah, so different studios were bidding for the rights to make the movie with certain directors in mind. So, like, Tim Burton was a name that was being floated around.
Huh.
And so I thought about what does a Tim Burton Jurassic Park look like?
Yeah, I mean, it'd be, I think, a lot more. I mean, there's some goofy moments, some lighthearted moments in Jurassic Park, but certainly there'd be some more slapstick, I think.
Well, the dinosaurs would be stop motion, I'm sure, because they nearly were anyways.
Correct. And it looked really good. The stop motion they came up with. I've seen that test footage of, in the velociraptors in the kitchen.
Yeah.
That scene, but just the CGI looked better.
Yeah. You know what? One thing I've always noticed about that movie that stood out to me is the clothing.
Yeah.
Have you ever thought about
iconic
that?
Outfits? Well,
they
my
are.
wife and I went as Dr. Sattler and Dr. Grant for Halloween. I think that was last year or the year before. And like we printed out little name badges with the Jurassic Park logo and had our visitor pass name on them. But I don't think we needed those. People recognized who we were just by the getup, and it was great.
Yeah. If you were going to say what this movie is about, but not so much the plot, what would you say?
I mean, it is at its highest level about man's reach exceeding his grasp, right? It's that kind of story. But it's also about it works because of the childlike innocence and wonder and seeing this incredible, these incredible animals, this incredible situation they all find themselves in through the eyes of a child. through the eyes of. I think it needed that. I mean, when Spielberg is at his best, I think it's that humanity he brings to it. It doesn't have to be, through the eyes of a child, but certainly, you look at E.T., you look at, I would argue even Poltergeist, which, he was involved with the creation of, a horror movie, but has so much heart, and it's a family story at the heart of it. The grandkids, and Dr. Grant, Dr. Sattler become this surrogate family together who have trauma bonded, and you get that same flavor of family connection that is universal, and it's powerful, and it helps drive the story.
Yeah, I agree. Life finds a way.
Life finds a way. Continuity errors, this far-fetched plot. I mean, yes, like it's based in science, but I mean they even admit, the hurdles of, finding intact DNA that you could create a dinosaur from. The real life paleontologist Jack Horner has said the way to create a dinosaur today isn't by digging at fossils, it's by taking a chicken and reverse engineering.
Yeah.
Which makes total sense, but it's just the magic and the wonder of it allows you, and these incredible effects and incredible music too. We haven't even talked about John Williams' score. All of it meshing together in a way that allows you to suspend all disbelief and get totally wrapped up in this gripping and at times heartwarming and at times terrifying story.
It's cool when a movie that is that popular and that iconic also can be personal to somebody.
Well, yeah. I'd love to say I had this art house, flick that nobody, that only the cool kids watch. But I like what's popular, and but sometimes that's okay, and that's it. It's a really good movie in spite of its commercial success.
No, it's a popcorn flick, but it's gourmet popcorn.
Absolutely. Butter and Reese's Pieces on top. It's really good.
Thank you for listening to Why This Movie. If you have a movie that you love that you'd like to talk about, email me at christopherallenmaloney@gmail.com, and you may be featured on an upcoming show.